Welcome back. In this video we will try to understand what is closures, and we will see everything in detail. And the prerequisite for this lesson is to go through the previous lessons where I discussed the call stack working, and then the block scoped variables, and then global and local scopes. And if you followed those three videos, then it's very easy topic for you. Like, you already understand what are closures, like 95%. So in this video I'll be covering the remaining 5% only. So just make sure you go through the previous videos. So now coming to closures. To understand closures, first you need to know what are callbacks. Little bit about callbacks, not especially to know about callbacks, but if we understand callbacks, right, then we can understand very clearly how does a closure is working. So let's discuss what are callbacks, and then we will move on to the actual topic. So don't forget that the functions are in JavaScript, the functions are also variables, right? So for example, when I create a function func, just like this, empty function, and then if I declare a variable a with a value of 20, and func is also a variable. So here a is a func is a variable, and then a is also a variable. So what is a variable? A variable is the container which holds some data type, right? It can hold a string data type, it can hold a number data type, and so on. So here func is the variable which holds a data type, and a is the variable which holds another data type. So let's see what are those data types. So let me print the type of a, and let me also print the type of func, and let me save. And you see type of a is printed as number because variable a holds number, and type of func is printed as a function. So function is a data type in JavaScript. Okay, so functions are also held by the variables only. The data type of function is a function. Okay, so only that's a kind of data type here, but the func is still a variable, right? Now you might ask me, like, can't we create functions like how we create variables? And the answer for that is, of course, yes. We can do create functions by using let keyword, const keyword, as well as var keyword also. So much like the variables. So let me create a func called func1, and now here I'm going to assign a value which is a function value. So here I assigned a number value, right? So similarly we can also assign a function value like this, but there is a syntax that we need to follow. So we can assign function values in two ways. One is using arrow notation, and one is the regular notation. So coming to the regular notation, so we just write the function keyword and open close braces, and we open close curly braces, and we write the code. Okay, so now this is much like a number 20, and func1 is a variable, and for that func1 we are assigning a function value like this. And another way is we can create a variable called func2, and for this we can assign a function this way also. And this notation we call as arrow notation, and here we write the same code. Okay, why we call it as arrow notation is because we use a arrow syntax here, and then we write the block of code or the function code, function body within this braces. And if any parameters are there, we pass into this something like this, and here if any parameters are there, we pass here something like this. Okay, so we can declare functions much like variables. So this is it about this one. So now let's say if I have a function called test, right, and it's going to take a parameter a. Okay, and let's not bother about what data type it takes, but it's going to take a variable a or a value a, and the value of a can be any data type, right? So here if I pass a test, here if I pass a number, let's say 20, then if I print the type of 20, type of a here, let me log this. So here if I print the type of a, what will be the type of a? So for a, since during this call at line number 5 we are passing number 20, so the type of a will capture that 20, so type of a would definitely be a number. Let me save, and you see it prints number. So similarly we can call the same function by passing a different value. Now this time I wanted to pass a function value. Previously we have seen, right, like how we assigned a 20 to a variable. Similarly we also assigned a function value. So can't we pass a function as an argument here? Of course yes. How? Just the function value. So what is this? It's a function, empty function, right? And if this entire thing is a function value, okay, and the function value I'm passing, so a is going to capture eventually something like this. Okay, so a is going to capture this value, whatever I passed from this invocation. So what would be the type of A this time? For this call, the type of A would be function. So let me save, and you see here it prints a function. And this one we call as a callback. So let me tell you the definition of a callback. So when we pass functions as an arguments to another function, then that argument we call as callback function. So here this one we call as a callback function. Okay, because once this A captures that argument, we can call that A here, right? We can call that A here because A is a function now. A is a function, right? Because for this call, not for the 7th line call. So let me erase this. So for this 7th call, you see I'm passing a function call, right? And in this, let's say I will also have a message called alert hello. So you see it is going to print an alert message in the web page saying hello. This is the function body, a single line code, and this function would be captured by parameter A, right? So let me have it here. So this one is going to be captured by A, and then here I am executing A. That means I am executing this block of code, right? So when this block of code gets executed, it will show an alert message. So let me save, and you see it shows the alert message. And if I click OK, it will also print the next line, which is the type of A. So basically we pass the function here, this one, as an argument, right? And that argument is captured by the respective parameter A, and A is capturing the function value, so we can execute A over there. And this one we call as a callback function, because according to the definition of callback, when we pass a function value as an argument to another function, that argument function we call as a callback function, because we can call that function inside the actual function. Yeah, this is little bit about callbacks. So similarly, we can also return a function from here, right? So here I would like to create another variable called some, let's say func1, and then this func1 is going to be a function like this. So here it says function inside test, something like this. And you see func1 is a variable now here, right? So this func1 is a variable, and the variable is declared within this test function, and it's holding a arrow function value, which is a function value again. And can't we return the func1 here? Yes, we can, because it's a function. Okay, so instead of returning this func1 variable, we can directly return this value also. So much like returning 20 directly, or assigning 20 to some other variable and returning it. Okay, and the return value we can capture into another variable called result. So let's not have this argument now. Let's make it to empty, and this one too, and this one too. So now you see when I execute test function, what will happen? Inside that function there is a variable func1 is created, and that func1 is got returned, and return value is captured by result. So if I log result, what would be the result? Let me log the result. So if I log this result, the result would be this arrow function. So let me save, and you see we get that arrow function. And if I print the type of that result, then can you guess what will be the type of result? It would be the function, because this function is returning another function. Okay, so you see it's a function data type. So can't we execute this result here? Yes, since it's a function, so we can execute it. So when we execute, what will happen? This block of code gets executed, which will print this text at line number 3. So let me save, and you see at line number 3 it prints function inside test. So now this is pretty much about the callbacks, and then how do we treat functions are also kind of variables. And now let's jump into actual video where we are interested to learn closures. So in the previous video, if you remember, I told you a very important point, where when a variable in a context is not found by the JavaScript engine, then what will it do? It will search for that variable in its parent execution context, right? So if you remember that, then we will extend a little bit for this one. So let me have a function here with the name of test, and then here I'm going to log a variable a, and then here I'm going to create a variable a with a value of 20, and then here I'm going to call the test. So without saving this file, let us discuss what would be the output for this. So basically when we run this file, firstly what will happen, the control start from line number 1. So from line number 1 to 3 it's a function definition. So initially in the call stack, global execution context at the bottom most, And in the global execution context, a variable test gets declared. It's a variable, right? So the variable value is a function value. So let me keep this round braces to indicate that. And then the control directly jumps from line number 1 to line number 4. And at line number 4, we create a variable, and line number 4 is also present in the global. So variable A gets declared with a value of 20, and then the control moves to line number 5. And at line number 5, it's an invocation to test. So whenever we invoke the function, don't forget to create a brand new context and pause here. So here another brand new context is going to get created, which is this one, which is test execution context. Okay, and when we enter into it, there are no arguments to get captured, so directly the control jumps from line number 5 to line number 2. And at line number 2, we are trying to access a variable A, but there is no variable A within this context. So what should it do, according to like we discussed in the last video? So since the variable A is not present, JavaScript engine will search for that variable in its parent context. So I told you what was the parent context also. For a particular context, the parent context is defined as where this context is defined. That means where test is defined, that context we call as the parent of test context. So test is a variable which is defined in the global execution context you see here. So the parent context of test is global execution context. So JavaScript engine will search for that variable A in its parent context, which is here. And of course it's going to find, so it will print that 20 over there. So in the output, we will get printed with a value of 20. So here what will be printed? 20. And then the control comes out of to line number 6. From line number 6, nothing. So we know what will happen. Just everything gets erased, right? So this is all we discussed in the last video itself. Now let's take it another scenario and let's analyze. And let me save this, and you see we get 20 here. And now here this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable A here with a value of 100, and then I'm going to return a function value. Okay, or let me create a variable called, for the naming convention I'll name it child, and then this child is a function, and inside this function I'll be printing a variable A, right? And then this test function also I'll make it to parent. So and here in the parent function I'm going to return this child variable, which is a function. Okay, and that should be captured by a result, just like this. And result is a function, so I can call result over here. Now just pause the video and try to analyze and try to get with the come up with the answer, and then you watch the video further. So before I save this, I just wanted to make an analysis for this particular so let's see what will happen. So firstly, global execution context will be created at the very bottommost, and then the execution will start from line number 1. So from line number 1 to line number 7, this is just a function definition which is in the global, and the function name is parent. So parent is a variable with a value of function, and then the control from line number 1 will directly jump to line number 8. So at line number 8 we declare a variable A, and which is having a value 20, and then the control moves forward to line number 9. At line number 9, variable result is declared. So result is a variable, and for this we assign the invocation of parent. So that means whatever parent returns, that will be the value of this result. So since here is an invocation, so it will be paused over here, and the control jumps to another brand new context, which is parent execution context. And in the parent execution context, the control from line number 9 will directly jump to line number 2. So at line number 2 we declare a variable A. So A will get declared within this context with a value of 100, and then moving forward to line number 3. From line number 3 to line number 5, it's just a function definition which is named as child. So child is a variable which is a function, right? And then the control from line number 3 will directly jump to line number 6. So at line number 6, what we do, we are returning something, right? So we are returning this child variable. So we are returning this child variable, and I told you whenever return statement gets executed, the entire function context will be erased from the call stack. But before I do erase this one, I just wanted to take a snapshot of this and keep it aside. So which is the parent execution context. So here I'm drawing that. just a snapshot, like the what things are there inside. And you see child is declared where? Inside parent only. So this is parent snapshot. Okay, just like that, because there is a usage. And then we return this child, right? That means the result variable is going to capture this one. So the result variable in the global will capture, and meanwhile this will also get erased. And since we returned child from here, right? So child will be returned and it will capture this child. Okay, and then coming to, now we are done with this parent execution context, and the result is captured this child. Okay, now the control moves to line number 10 in the global, right? Because we are done with the line number 9. So at line number 10 we are invoking the function result. So invoking the function result means actually result function has a reference of this child function, right? So invoking result function is much like invoking the child function. So here instead of child, instead of result, I'll just invoke this child, because both are same. Result is nothing but the child that returned from the parent function. And then when I invoke child function being in the global execution context, what should happen? A brand new context will be created for the child execution context. So child execution context gets created. So here is the child execution context. And when child execution context gets created, the code inside the child function will get executed, right? So this is what actually the child function is. So the control from line number 10 will directly jump to line number 4. And at line number 4, you see we are printing a variable a. So here we are trying to access a variable a, but is there a variable a within this context called child execution context? No. So when the variable is not there, what will JavaScript engine will do? It will search for that variable in its parent context. And remember, the parent context is not the one which is just below the current execution context always. So in this case, we are executing child, right? So we are in the child execution context. So when we are executing child execution context, the parent of child, when you see this is the child execution context. So the parent of child execution context will be not this global execution context, but it will be the previously erased parent snapshot or parent execution context. And this child execution context will have a reference to its parent context always, whether it is erased from the call stack or not, irrespective of that. So a particular function context will always have a link with its parent context, and its parent will have a link with its parent will have a link with its parent, and so on. Like here child context will have a link with its parent, and this parent is declared inside the global, so parent will have a link with its parent which is global, and so on, like this. So the variable a will be checked in its parent context, that means here, so which is the value 100. So here it will print 100. Okay, so at this print statement it will print 100, and it won't print this 20 because the 20 is in the grandparent context and not in the parent context. So for this child, the 20 is in global, right? So global is a grandparent for child, and who is the direct parent of this child? Wherever the child is declared, and the child is declared in the parent, so the searching will happen here. And now this is all about the closure is. So basically the closure means, like here, how a function which is child function is binded to its parent. Basically a function is forming a closure with its lexical parent. So lexical parent and parent both are same. So parent or lexical parent, the definition I gave is like a function wherever it is declared, so that context we call as lexical parent or lexical execution context. So the child is binded to its lexical parent, which is this one, and this parent is binded to its lexical parent, which is global execution context, and so on. We say that a function is forming a closure with its lexical environment. So let me show you the output for this. And then once this line number 10 is done, what will happen? So once the console log A is done, then what will happen from the call stack? So this one is going to get erased, just like this, and from the call stack. And then after line number 10 also, this one will also be erased, just like this. Okay, So yeah, so let's see the output of this, and let me save. So you see here we got printed with 100 and it is not 20. So basically whenever variable searching is there, like a variable is not present in a context, don't look for the direct context which is below it, but look for where that function is actually defined, and look for the variable in that context. If in that context also if you don't find, then search in its parent context, and so on. So that's how this closures works. And there is an official definition which I wanted to resolve here. So you see the official definition goes like this: a closure is the combination of a function bundled together or enclosed with references to its surrounding state. So let me tell you about the statement. And here the surrounding state they say is lexical environment. So here a closure is the combination of a function. That means here in our case it's the child function. Okay, bundled, the child function bundled together or enclosed with references to its surrounding state. So who is the surrounding state of this function? And the function child is declared at line number 3. That means line number 3 where it is there in the parent context. So the lexical parent of child is what? Its parent. Okay, so the child is forming an enclosed reference with its lexical parent, or the child function is bundled together with its surrounding state or with its lexical environment, which is the parent, and that thing we call as a closure. That thing we say, you see here in JavaScript, closures are created every time a function is created, and this happens every time. So basically child is forming a closure with its lexical environment, which is basically parent. So when a variable is not present in child, searching will happen in its lexical parent. If in its lexical parent also that variable is not found, and recursively it will search in its lexical, which is the global. Okay, so I hope you understand this topic. For more videos, do subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.